Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today to basically talk about a few issues that have been affecting the UK recently. So I guess the main thing I want to discuss is, so recently we had the Brexit vote in the UK, and I think this has been a really good time for democracy right now since we had this vote, because I believe it was the first time in many years that we've actually, the people, have been allowed to make a decision on a major issue, and, you know, the government are now being forced into actually doing what the people wanted done. You know, they wanted out of the EU, they wanted out of this massive socialist edifice that had been creating loads of laws and that had been enforcing those laws on us. You know, we wanted control of our borders, we wanted control of our government and, you know, the party who we actually send into government, and that was why the Brexit vote was really important. But what we saw in the build-up to the vote was that our regressive left media were telling us that we needed to vote Remain. You know, we needed to stay in Europe because, well, we had. The politicians were saying this, pop stars were saying this, everyone was chiming in, actors, everyone who worked in the IMF and the Federal Reserve. Obviously those really nice people who work in central banks, because everyone who works in a central bank who makes money out of nothing and then gives that money to themselves, they're the really nice people who you want to listen to on a matter of policy. Definitely, they've obviously got your best interests at heart. And so, luckily, the people saw sense. They said fuck you to the establishment and they voted out of Europe. And now we've become a sovereign state. We haven't done it yet. We've still got to do Article 50. So let's get this done. Let's get the hell out of this crumbling socialist edifice known as Europe. Hell yeah.
It's a fascist Catholic Union.
So socialism, I heard a really good argument on this, which was that, socialism is government corporatism. It's basically the corporation of government. The government, what they like to do is to increase the size of government by any means possible. And so what they do is they, for instance, they'll try and increase the size of the police force, they'll try and increase the size of the public sector, they'll try and increase the size of the government, and obviously they love huge socialist edifices like the EU, who are completely undemocratically, they're not elected, they just get their positions. Sure, we have MEPs, but they only played a small part in the wider, greater sphere of the EU, which was basically a place where politicians went to after they retired, where they were given massive, you know, pensions, and they continued on in arbitrary roles where they didn't really have to do anything. They were the risers and the movers and shakers of the regressive left government. But the fact is by getting out of the EU, we're moving away from the regressive left. And generally, that's what we're seeing in the UK at the moment. There's a lot of, there's a lot of a general movement away from the left wing. And the fact is why this is happening is because people are sick and tired of their main weapon, which is political correctness. People absolutely hate political correctness. Yes, they do.
And obey.
Too many people do, but there's a movement against it now. And the person who's spearheading this movement away from political correctness, who's trying to get us away from all of that, is this guy, Donald Trump. I don't know if he's a perfect politician. I reckon that he is thank you for that. I reckon he is a movement towards Thatcherite politics, but I think that's a huge improvement on what we have now. What we have now with the regressive left, who are coming in, who have created, well, not created, but they've certainly made radical feminism a hell of a lot worse than it's ever been before. They've, moved this into the job sector. Also, we get today, we get mindless mass immigration. And the problem, sorry? How am I racist? That is, come on, explain.
You're racist.
Okay, everyone's a racist, right? No, we've got that cleared up. So basically, what the problem with mindless mass immigration, and we've got it all over Europe now, is there's this issue of the corporations really like this. Certainly the left-wing government like this. Labour have loved mass immigration for many years because they've been the primary party who have been encouraging mass immigration. They like to import voters, but also the corporations love it because it allows them to import a new population base. So that means they don't have to pay the workers much money. They can lower wages and say, well, if you're not prepared to work in the job, we'll just get some immigrants over who will be prepared to work in the job. You know, there's other issues as well with it. Say if we look at radical feminism over the last 50 years, what we see is that, say, with the divorce industry, since we brought in no-fault divorce laws in the 1970s, the rate of marriage has declined in the UK hugely, and also, the child rearing rate. So people aren't getting married anymore, and people aren't having kids anymore. This is, happening to the UK indigenous population. I believe radical feminism is the cause of this, and how it has done this is because what it has done is we now have a situation where in the UK 200 men are removed, 200 fathers lose contact with their kids every single day. We also have a situation where 1 in 4 kids now is growing up in a single mum household. And
1 in 4 kids is called Mohammed.
Right, well, 1 in 10 kids actually, which was the 2011 UK census. But come on, they're going to do the next census in a few years. That number is going to increase beyond 1 in 10. I think this is a disaster for social cohesion anyway. Certainly, if we have the Islamification of Britain, I think that's a disaster for social cohesion. Like what we need to do, really.
The Islamification of the moon as we are to have the Islamification of Britain.
Oh, what are you talking about? 1 in 10 kids under 5.
What's that got to do with anything?
1 in 10 kids under 5 are Muslim.
You know most of the population is over 5, right?
Sorry?
You know most of the population is over 5 years old. People grow up.
Well, seriously. Come on, yeah. Like all of these 1 in 5-year-olds, they will grow up and they will start to take over the country. And this is a bad thing for social cohesion between the two groups, between the indigenous group and between the new migrants who are coming in.
Changed our laws for them.
This is a really bad thing for social cohesion. Like, I'm sorry, but this is going to cause mass conflict, and it's a conflict that's brewing, and it's going to be awful when it hits.
Are they the Beaker people? Are they the Vikings? Are they the Germans? Who are the indigenous people? Are they the Romans?
Right.
Celts?
Okay. So over time, over many years, we haven't had much in the way of immigration. Certainly not compared to what we have now. Compared to what we have now, we have mass immigration. We have 330,000 people coming over every single year. In fact, that might actually be net migration. Obviously, we've got way better transport facilities now than we did in the past. So this is an issue that we actually have to work out.
Oh, you'll stop and listen now, will you?
Yeah.
And Muslim terrorists from this country, are they contributing?
I think it's a bad thing if you get to this 1 in 5 figure. Certainly, if you get more than that, then it's going to cause mass conflict. It's a major issue. Also, what I want to state is the importance of secular values in UK society. Secular values helped us to build the modern world. It helped the British Empire, you know, for all their faults. They did establish a trade route that go right around the globe. They did this through the Enlightenment, through secular values, through not allowing religion to have a massive part in how laws are created. Interestingly, if you look at the Ottoman Empire, the main Muslim empire from the year 1500, at that point in time, they were the primary civilization on the world. They had more power, more wealth, more grandeur than any other civilization at that point in time. But they made a massive mistake after that, in that they basically, what they did was they brought in major elements of Sharia law. One of these is that they said that the printing press was kuffar, so they banned the printing press. This caused absolute decadence throughout the Ottoman Empire. This caused a major degeneration in their society, because think of all the books that have been written since 1500. Think of all the important medical journals, all the important texts in every single subject. All of these texts that have helped build the modern world, that have helped transform society, that have boosted scientific progress massively. This is why it is so important that we do not let religion start dictating laws. We need to keep the two separate.
Should we let Christianity dictate laws?
No, absolutely not.
We have bishops in the House of Lords, don't we?
Sorry?
We have bishops in the House of Lords.
Right, I'm not in favour of the House of Lords.
Right, Donald Trump talks about defending Christian values. What do you think of that?
I think he's talking to his voters.
So you think that he's a liar? You think he's a charlatan? And yet you support him?
Okay, we've had this talk before where I said that I didn't agree with everything he said.
You're wearing a hat.
And you said because I'm wearing his t-shirt, therefore I have to agree with every single, argument that he... No, I agree with him on a lot of stuff. I don't agree with him on everything.
So on this subject, you can stump the Trump.
Hey?
On this particular subject, you can stump the Trump.
You can stump the Trump on everything, but I like him on a lot of stuff. There's a few things I disagree with him. Do you agree with everything Jeremy Corbyn says?
I'm not wearing a t-shirt with "Can't Stump Jeremy Corbyn" on it.
Well, I think you should maybe go and get a t-shirt with saying
I disagree with everything Jeremy Corbyn says.
Go and get a t-shirt with Jeremy Corbyn's face on it, and then we can have a more interesting discussion after that. Okay, so I'm not selling the t-shirts. You can get them on Amazon. And the cap as well, down at the Trump store. Also, if you're American, vote for him, because he's a lot better than Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is she wants to go into Syria. She wants to, that lovely place. She wants to go into there and create a whole new conflict down there. She also wants to step up aggression against the Chinese. She's absolutely ridiculous. Trump is an imperialist, which I'm against. He is an imperialist, but I think he just wants to go into Iraq and make sure that he just wants to keep the oil in Iraq. So that's the extent, I believe, of his imperial ambitions. Clinton, on the other hand, wants to go into Syria as a way of toppling Iran's power, as a way of toppling Russia's power. So there's the whole Cold War going on, and it will continue if Clinton gets into power. And Trump's not going down that route. He's going down a more libertarian route. So I think on that basis, he is a safer bet, the lesser of two evils. I think the main thing, though, that he's promoting is nationalism, which I believe is really important. That is basically looking after your own people. I think government should look after their own people. Government should come along and say, I do not want terrorist activity going on in my country. I'm going to do all I can to stop that. I think they should say, I do not want a foreign population coming over and completely taking over the country. As I said, I don't agree with everything he says or does. I agree with his stance on nationalism and his stance on anti-political correctness.
Stance on nationalism.
His stance on nationalism is he doesn't want terrorists coming in, and he also doesn't want cultural assimilation by other cultures. He wants to keep America, the population who are there, he wants to look after them, and for them to do well, and for them to seed America into the future.
Everybody wants that.
No, they do not.
You just said he's against terrorism, which literally everybody
No,
is.
the regressive left, the regressive left do not want
people in the country doing well.
The regressive left do not want the survival of their own culture. They want to destroy their own culture. They want to do that as a way of lowering wages so corporations can pay people nothing to do their jobs. Also, as a way of increasing political feminism, which is a way of destroying the family unit so that the government can profit off the destruction of the family unit.
Okay. So you're saying that you don't want to be regressive left, therefore you're in favour of Trump. So have you tried any of the things on that spectrum?
No. What I'm not. Basically,
right wing, centre right. They're just going straight away for far right.
I don't think he is. I think a lot of what he's saying is a lot of what people agree with. You know, I think he's. I'm absolutely sure he's going to get into power. And I believe the reason why is because he's really saying what the people want to hear. There's a massive shift at the moment away from left wing towards the right wing. And I believe the reason why is the people are terrified of the left wing. They think these guys are friggin' nutters. These guys are bringing in political correctness and they're waging a war on their own population. And also, you know, they're bringing in radical feminism as a way of destroying the family unit so that companies can profit from this, including the divorce industry, the prison industry. It's a way of increasing the size of government.
You're embarrassing yourself.
And, no, I'm not. I'm doing pretty well.
I feel bad for you.
Will you be voting in this election or no?
Hey? I'm British, so I'm not voting.
Yeah. Well, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Oh, come on. He's going to win. You've got to love Daddy. You've got to love Daddy. He's going to win. He's got good policies and he's going to come in and he's basically, what he represents is a political shift which is being led by the people of America. And we saw the same thing in the UK with the Brexit vote. And, you know, we saw it in the last election as well. The massive movement away from Liberal Democrats towards UKIP and Conservatives. You know, we had a Labour majority government back in 2009. Now, things couldn't be any more conservative. And it's going to continue to go that way because the left have lost their minds and everyone hates them. And everyone's like, you know, looks in at these idiots who told us to vote Remain, who then, you know, used the word racist for everyone who, you know, wanted to vote Brexit. You know, they said, oh yeah, you know, everyone who, after the EU referendum, they said, oh yeah, everyone who voted Brexit was a racist. All these Northerners, all these Welsh people, all these working class people, they were all racist. That's become the left's favourite hate word, you know, but the fact is, it's like a knife, which isn't a knife anymore, because they've used it so many times, it's now just a handle. So being stabbed by the word racist now, is basically by a leftist, is the same as being hit with just a handle, and there's no actual knife left, and it doesn't hurt, and it's not an issue, it's just a meaningless word now, and that's a good thing. Because that means we can actually have a discussion about these issues without resorting to ridiculous shaming tactics. And yeah, that's why I think we're seeing this massive shift now to Hillary Clinton the other day actually addressed this new right-wing movement. She called it the alternative right. And I agree with that. That is what it is.
Oh, that's very funny.
It includes people. There's Milo Yiannopoulos, the Breitbart tech editor, who recently did a tour of US universities where he was delivering anti-feminism comments, and he did really well. There was a lot of support for him, and what I like about it is it's showing up and it's highlighting the political divide that we're seeing in this country, that we're seeing in the US, we're seeing it across the first world. The massive political divide that is happening now, primarily between the regressive left and all of those who support them, who are backed by the mainstream media, who are backed by massive amounts of government money, who are trying to build the corporation of government, and we're now seeing a new libertarian revolution, which is primarily right-wing people who are trying to promote the idea of a small government. They don't want a big government. They don't want tax money going into all of these industries. They want a lot of these industries to be run as free market ventures rather than in the tax system. Earlier today I was talking about the prison industry and the police service and how I believe they should both be run as free market ventures rather than through the tax system. Because when you run these services through the tax system, what happens is that the government do whatever the hell they want. And I think this causes a lot of problems. I can see you would disagree with me on this.
You're a naive man.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, with what you're saying, you know.
No. This is an important... Look, this is an important political shift, and it's happening.
You know, on right wing, you know, you're going to go down, you know.
So are you suggesting the police say we have Metropolitan Police Limited, a company?
Yeah, I want the people to pay for their own police service. That's free at the point of use, but yeah.
Why there should be police at all? There should not be police.
Yeah, we need protection.
In a civilized country, people govern themselves.
No, people will pay for a police force to give them protection for themselves.
What protection? They are protecting the rich, the plutocrats.
Well, this is a problem. This is a problem with running it through the tax system. If you run it as a free at the point of view service, which is paid for by the people, then you don't have this issue, because people will pay.
Keep corruption out of the police if it was a private company.
Because it's free at the point of use. So that's a really important detail. That means they give the same service to everyone who comes in to their contact. But also, at the same time, people have choice about who they hire as a police service. I believe we should do the same thing for the courts, for the criminal justice system.
That should be privatised.
Yeah. I'm for full privatisation of every industry. Well, actually, what would happen is if we privatised all the industries, had them free at the point of use as services, but what would happen is that would encourage wealth equality across the nation as a way of paying for all of these industries. We need to have more wealth equality, more income equality, in order to pay for these services.
How would they get paid?
People would pay for them. You'd be required to pay for a police service, but you'd have choice about the one you paid money to. So that would empower people in terms of the...
Private company, but still paying public money.
Yeah, I mean, there would be no taxes. So people would... No taxes, you would pay for all of these services yourself. Everyone would.
As and when you need them.
No, I mean, you probably do it as a monthly payment, the same way you do. No, it's not, because you've got choice.
If you cannot afford to pay for that, you know what's going to happen.
Right, I'm not sketching out all of the details for all of homeless people or jobless people. I'm just saying, as a key principle, I believe that's what needs to happen. Is we need to move away from paying for these services within the tax system. Hey?
Different private police, they wouldn't work together, so it's a non-starter.
So you'd get a tapestry of all the different services, and they'd be required to work together as a singular force. So you'd look at percentages, and based upon their percentage of how much of that industry they're, you know, chartered to perform. That's how much influence they'd have in terms of policy making and in terms of how they run. So yeah, that's my main idea, my main thesis, I guess, what I was suggesting earlier, is this movement towards libertarianism. And I think it's really important. I think people need to see that having a massive government is not a good thing. You know, it wasn't a good thing back when Mao Zedong did it in China and their agricultural revolution in the 50s. It wasn't a good thing, you know, when Pol Pot did it in Cambodia. It wasn't a good thing when Joseph Stalin did it in Russia. And it's not a good thing that our government are trying to do the same thing now. You know, the regressive left government, which we've had since Tony Blair's government came into power in 1997, they've been building the state as a way of trying to get more tax money from everyone, as a way of having a massive government, massive amounts of expenditure, and yeah, the whole thing has been a disaster. And so I think that's why we're having this really important libertarian revolution now. And long may it continue. Thank you.